Hi everybody. All right, today we're going to be talking about the procedure that we use to repack the Minuteman loads on our two engines and the ladder truck. It's a Minuteman load that's stacked on one on top of each other. It's not stacked side by side if you're coming from another agency that uses that particular setup. So it's a slight bit different, but the concept is the same. Most of our loads have a whip that's attached that will remain attached to the load itself, and that just makes it a little bit easier for us when we're deployed and then repacking those. All of our crosslays are 200 feet. The sizes vary slightly, but again, the purpose of this demonstration is just the repacking of it. When you're repacking the hose, it's important, you're going to see in this demonstration that it's already all laid out, which is how we would have it kind of flaked out and ready to go back on the truck to a certain extent. But it's important to understand that when you have deployed this hose and actually used it, and it's been full of water, there's going to be water still in it, and there's going to be some air as well. So it's important that each length gets drained appropriately and then rolled prior to repacking. That ensures that we have enough room in the hose bed to get the hose bed cover to close, and then it's going to pack in there nice and neatly. So without further ado, we'll start with the repacking process. Okay, so there's a couple of positions for personnel that make this easier. If you can have one person on the ground that's kind of managing the hose, making the connections as you go, and assisting and feeding and repacking, that's an important position. The next one is somebody who's kind of in the position that the deputy is in right now to manage the folds here. We want to keep those nice and neat, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how we do that in a few minutes. And then you're going to have an individual on top of the truck. That person their main job is going to be to flake the hose back and forth and coordinate that. And then there's one more person going to be on the other side that you can't see right now that's doing a very similar job to what the deputy is doing on this side. They're managing the turns in the hose as it gets laid into the bed. So we'll start. As you're repacking it, take your time if you need. Make sure that there is not a lot of slack in each lay as it goes in. As you come towards the edge of each side of the bed, you want to feather the folds back and forth just slightly so that it doesn't splay up at the end too much. And if my cameraman can kind of zoom in, you can see how the deputy is doing that right now. You can see how this one's a little shorter than the one on either side of it, and we're going to continue that pattern all the way up. Okay, so we have two loops that go into our crosslays. The first one is going to be at the 50-foot mark. It can go either right before the coupling or right after, but either is appropriate. And you don't want to be looking at these ones. These are kind of a poor example. On each of the engines and on the ladder, there's this metal sill here. We want the loops to not be any longer than that. They become kind of in the way and cumbersome at that point. So we want the loops to kind of come down and be almost touching, if not touching, this metal shelf here. The first loop again is going to go at 50 feet, and then the next one's going to go beneath the nozzle, and we'll show you that when we get there. Pause it. Okay, as you get close to the 100-foot mark, we've been laying this in just like almost like a normal flat load all the way through. We're going to put another loop. The purpose of this loop, as you can see, it's already on this one as my cameraman kind of zooms in here. This loop is simply to make it easier to clear the second 100 feet of hose that we're going to put in or pack into the bed next. When you pull this loop, you're going to be dropping that, you're going to be grabbing that. So we need to make sure that this loop is directly underneath this 100-foot section here. We don't want it down a couple of layers because then it's going to not deploy as well and it's not going to be as efficient. So we want to make sure that that loop goes in right before that second 100 feet of hose. The end of this hose here, when you get to that point, you're going to make your loop and then you're actually going to send that end of the hose, that male end, all the way over to the other side, and you're just going to flop it out the other side of the hose bed and get it out of the way for right now. That's going to get reconnected to the top of this next section, or these next two sections of hose, when we're done. Okay, so now we're ready to start repacking the second 100 feet of this crosslay. We have our 2 loops in. This last loop that we were just discussing is right underneath where that section is gonna go. So we're ready to go. This one we're gonna do in reverse. So we're actually starting with the nozzle, and the nozzle is going to lay in on top of that loop. You want the nozzle to be tucked in far enough that it's not going to come loose when you're driving down the road, but you don't want it in so far that it's difficult to access. Also, the bail on the nozzle should be facing down on these. All right, as we come to the end of the hose load here, we're going to simply send this coupling up and over to our person that's up top, and she's going to reconnect that to the other side that we had previously sent over after the first 100 feet. All right, I guess just the last component of this is when we're doing this last loop up here, we want to make sure that it extends out past the edge of this, because this comes down quite a bit and it can get stuck on that lip because this holds down. So we want to make sure that this last loop is protruding out past the face of the surface of this. Minute Maid.
Watch the banger.